Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agora Column, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. With us today for the first time ever is going to be Neil Sweeney. He's the CEO of Reklaim, trades in Canada under MYID. You're going to love that symbol when you hear what we're talking about. And in the US, MYIDF. For those new to the story, and that's going to be a lot of you because you've seen the headlines, to understand Reklaim, you first have to understand that the $400 billion global private data industry is going through what I call, in my words, a paradigm shifting protection cycle. And that's due to big tech companies are reducing access to data that the industry depends on. Global government regulations are now forcing platforms. We've seen the rules, you've seen the headlines, like Facebook and Twitter, and brands and data companies to protect consumer data privacy. Why? You've probably seen those headlines too. For years, our data, consumer data, has been amalgamated and sold without any limitations, without our knowledge. Everyone's making the money, and we don't even know what's happening. Enter Reklaim. This is the solution. They're creating a fair trade market where consumers can represent themselves or ourselves in how our data is used. They're the only company in the world providing consumers with access to their data. We're going to learn about that. And the only company in the world providing consumers with a weekly guaranteed paycheck. So if I've got your interest, now you got to hear the highlights. They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the talk. They're walking the walk. Q2 revenue, $645,000, up 277% over the year before. Q1 revenue was about $400,000, so they're already over seven digits in annual revenue. Recurring revenue was 85%. What small cap investor doesn't love to hear that? Their balance sheet up to about $1.1 million in cash. They added 33 new B2B clients, and they increased the number of their new customers by 63%. And customers, how about these guys? Microsoft, T-Mobile, Hewlett-Packard, HP, Hasbro, Amtrak, UPS, and way more. Now you know why insiders own 34% of the company. Neil, welcome to the show, my friend.
George, that was pretty good intro. Like, you've got a future at Reklaim if this small cap thing doesn't work out for you. Well done on the intro. Most people don't get all the nuances of what we're doing, but glad to be here. Love the passion. Happy to talk to you and your crew about what we're doing at Reklaim. I think, look, we're all consumers before we're investors. So this is a story that I think, every consumer can understand first and foremost as an individual, and then how they can actually apply that to sort of their capital markets and their investing strategy. I think it checks a lot of boxes for them.
And thanks for the kind words, but I got to tell you, I'm not just saying it, it's a lot easier to do these intros when you got great info to go from. I didn't have to stretch and try and find a good story. You guys are delivering all fronts. So first question, you're going to allow me to protect my personal private data and send me a check. Explain how that works.
Well, I mean, again, to sort of go back to that narrative of that we're all consumers first, like, let's just sort of lay the groundwork here. So you would acknowledge that as a consumer, you had a data profile, correct?
Of course.
Right? You would acknowledge that companies are collecting that data profile and using it to power their businesses or make their decisions, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you look at companies like Facebook and others, they literally report out in their quarterly filings the ARPU, or the average revenue per user, which is exactly how much money they made from selling your data, to other brands. So, the gap in the market right now, and kind of using what you were saying before, is that the multi-billion or the $500 billion data market is going through a paradigm shift. It's going through one of simplistically that doesn't have compliance to one that requires consumer inclusion. The consumer's never been included in this conversation, ever. What we're doing at
we're happy posting pictures to Facebook and saying, do whatever you want with my data. But now we know it's so lucrative, we got to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, I think the intention here is really to provide consumers a seat at the table as it relates to decisions around their data. And while that seems natural, democratic, ethical, fair, intuitive, it's non-existent. So we're the only company in the world today that is providing a consumer an ability to come to a platform. Think of it as a portal. You come to a platform, you validate who you say you are, and ta-da, we unveil all the data that is all the data that's currently circulating in the market.
Unbelievable, man.
So, I think the intention here is we feel that you should have right access and optionality around your data. That's something that doesn't exist today. It's something that big technology companies and data companies do not want to educate you as a consumer on.
Definitely not.
We believe that that's not the future. We believe that consumers should be involved in the decision making around their data. And the reality is that data has value. So in its most primal sense, yeah, there's cash value associated to that. So why should a third-party data broker who you've never heard of make thousands or millions of dollars off of selling, yours and your friends' data, and you get nothing? Shouldn't you be the individual that's participating in that? It's not dissimilar to how, well, why would Bieber put a song on Spotify if he wasn't going to get a royalty? But there is an exchange of data today with no independent royalty to the consumer. Reklaim is a portal to allow you to access your data, but provide a paycheck or a royalty to you for the use of that data. And if you choose to not want to share your data, you can pick and choose what you want to share and what you don't want to share. It seems very simple, obviously on the surface, building the technology, architecture, et cetera, around that. This is big data.
I can't imagine what that was like. But you're right. You make it sound so simple, because I think all of us, if a lot of us adults who've been on social media, every once in a while we see these posts, people put up these boilerplates, say, Facebook, this is my notice to you not to use my data. And we know it's a farce, right? But we all know it's a problem, but we've never had a clue what to do about it. We just figured, all right, it's a problem, but okay, there's nothing I can do about it. I'll just keep on. So I love the fact that you guys have a solution. Like you said, I can go into a portal, find myself, verify it's me, and then say, all right, I allow you to use all my data or some of my data or none of my data. And depending on that, I'm going to get either the benefit of money or the benefit of nobody's got my data. And I like what you said there. And I wonder if I can say this, but it sounds like you guys might be the Spotify of personal consumer data. If you want to play George's data, here it is, but you got to pay him a royalty every time. So question, you're well beyond concept, because a lot of people might say, okay, good idea, Neil, but how are you going to, you've done over $1 million in revenue just in the first half of the year. How are you generating that revenue? Is that just coming in from consumers, or you've also got a B2B side?
Yeah, I mean, so, using your analogy of sort of Spotify, you can draw a parallel there. We're the Airbnb or the Uber of consumer data. That's what we are. So as your customers or your subscribers can appreciate, Airbnb doesn't own any cottages or condos. They facilitate the renting of that cottage from the owner to the individual that wants to rent that. And in doing so, they take a commission. Uber does the same thing. They don't own any Toyotas. They facilitate a driver and a rider kind of creating a transaction. That's exactly what we do here. Uber doesn't own any cars. Airbnb doesn't own any condos. We don't own any data. Why? Because the consumer owns the data. We are helping the consumer facilitate the interaction and sale of that data with the buyer. And so you're ultimately buying data directly from the individual consumer. So how do we make money? We make money off every transaction, not dissimilar to a Visa, not dissimilar to an Uber, not dissimilar to an Airbnb.
Right.
Intuitively, again, the more data we sell, the more money we make. So this is a $500 billion market. This is Reklaim. You can do the math. This is not a ho-hum lifestyle business. This industry is in the middle of a massive pivot due to privacy changes and everything else that we talked about. And ultimately, people are going to be looking for suppliers that can provide high fidelity compliant data. We think that Reklaim is the best in class in providing that.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the growth. The press release that you put out just the other day, and paraphrasing, you've announced your M&A plans. Now, this isn't just you're going to try and sign up more people like George, a couple more businesses. You've announced specific M&A plans. You're targeting over 500 data brokers that are essentially they're at risk of being non-compliant and losing their business or being insolvent due to these new privacy laws, these data privacy laws. So what kind of supercharge do you expect that to provide to Reklaim's growth? And why would a data broker, merge or be acquired by Reklaim? Why would they actually do that?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe this is controversial, but I'm known to be controversial, so I say it anyway. But I look at the 500 data brokers that are operating in California. None of them have an on-ramp to actually maintain consumer compliance. None of your subscribers have ever heard of any one of these individual data brokers. Every single one of them has your data, and every single one of them is selling it today. How does that make you feel? Not good, I can assure you. So the issue is that the state of California has changed its privacy law. And like, again, we won't get into the privacy law nuances because everybody will fall asleep, but net, you have to actually have direct consent from consumers, and you have to be notifying them when you're using your data. The problem with data brokers is,
man, that blows up their business model, because now they got to find George and get my permission. That blows up their model.
yeah. So look, if you don't have an ability or, a front end or a UX or an on-ramp to actually manage interaction with the consumer, how do you remain compliant? That's your first question. I believe you can't. And as a consequence of that, that inherently means that you are carrying not unconsented data. One, I don't think you're gonna be able. No Fortune 500 no Fortune 500 company in the world is going to buy unconsented data in the future. Why? Because they're just ingesting liability. Nobody's doing that. Right. So
so before, just to get people to understand at home, before George.com data, I've got this massive database, and Facebook or Oracle or somebody would come to me and say, hey, what do you got? I don't know, in males over between the age of 40 and 50, and they say, here you go, as a transaction. But they're not doing that anymore because it's all unconsented.
Yeah, I mean, you have sort of two markets. You have like the Facebooks and the Googles of the world, which are sort of pseudo walled gardens. They generate data from their users, but they try to keep it inside of their ecosystems. But then you have these other, companies who, are not walled gardens, and they're trying to collect as much data on consumers, and then they're arbitraging it, which is, I'm getting, X amount of data from, 50 million users, and then I'm trying to sell it for different pieces of money. So net of this, all it means is that we just don't believe that the data broker model is a model that is going to scale or remain solvent in the future. And so the question for these individual companies is that how do you expect to remain compliant and or solvent in the future? If you don't have a solution to that, you should be bringing your clients to Reklaim, because Reklaim has a communication directly with the consumer. So your third-party unconsented data becomes first-party consented data, and you can remain sort of solvent in the future. I think, the position is quite simple, is we think that there's 500 data brokers for sale. We think that there's one company willing to buy them. So we have a lot of pricing power as it relates to that. And, simplistically, it's, I would suggest you partner with us now, because the price is going to get cheaper as time goes on, and we might not be interested, in the future. So I think the plan here is that, we're trying to get bigger as a company. The organic growth of this business, as you mentioned, is quite strong. The clientele that we have is quite strong. We want to be a bigger company. We want to be the definitive default brand known in the space. The bigger we get, the more awareness we get. The more awareness we get, the more consumers we get. The more consumers we get, the more data we get.
It just gets exponential, right? Just gets exponential.
It's self-fulfilling. So, the last 2 years, we've really built kind of like this infrastructure to satisfy all this data that sits inside our ecosystem. We could put, a dozen data brokers inside of what we're doing today and not really have any additional CapEx, and just sort of have it as a big margin play. So there's a roll up here. This industry is ripe for a roll up. And we think we can be the company that does it. So I think, taking our organic growth and supplementing it with some strategic, M&A to improve our margin, improve our cash flow, improve our top line. I mean, that's a roll up story, and that's a growth story that, most people can get their head wrapped around.
And that's what I love about it, because if it was just the organic side and there's no M&A, it's a fantastic business with great prospects for growth and success, just because you got the tailwind of consumers want to protect their dynasty and the laws, and you'd have a great, but then you got the M&A on top of that. That to me is like an accelerant. It's jet fuel. Question for you. I know it might be early because you just put out this press release just the other day. What does the pipeline look like, if at all? What kind of response are you getting from George.com data brokerage in California and ABC data brokerage? Have you gotten a feel for how these data, because they can't be happy about it, but at the same time, they don't have much of an option other than holding on to a dying model till the last day and then shutting their doors. So what is the sentiment so far, or is it too early?
No, it's not too early, but again, like you're dealing with entrepreneurs who are inherently not the most rational people on the planet. I can say that because I'm one of them. But like ultimately, when you call these people, and this is an incestuous business, everybody knows everybody. So, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's not like I'm some random guy that nobody's kind of ever heard of. I've been building companies in this space for a long time. So when I call them, it's how's business? What's going on? What's the future? What's your plan for? You saw Oracle get hit with a $5 billion class action lawsuit in the state of California. You've got Kochava, this massive location provider, being, sued by the FCC. Like you've got Sephora getting hammered for privacy legislation or privacy infractions in California. I'm like, Sephora, Kochava, Oracle, if these massive companies are getting dinged with litigation, why are you precluded from that? And what's your plan around that? I mean,
it's only a matter of time till they get to you because they're going for the biggest guys first, but they're coming to George Data sooner or later.
It comes both ways. First of all, yes, they're exposed in relation to that. But the second part is it just, you think every Fortune 500 company sees that, that comment around Sephora getting fined by the state of California. And it makes them think twice about, well, wait a minute, what are we doing on the data side? And we probably need to make sure that we're actually working with compliance. Right. That's good for me. That's bad for the broker. So
right, because now Fortune 500 Co says, hey, don't buy any more data from George Data unless we can confirm that's consented data. If it's not worth it, because for the little money we're going to make on that, or a lot of money we're going to make, we're going to get a lawsuit that's 10 times bigger than that, right?
And not to mention, sort of the negative PR associated to it. So, I think it's the combination of call it sticker shock, where the Fortune 500 does not want to be featured in the Wall Street Journal buying unconsented data from a broker. They just don't. It's just bad. It's just a bad look. It combines with the fact that due to the changes that have been happening with the privacy legislation, that's now manifested in the decision making of these various different technology firms like Apple and Google. Like a number of your subscribers will be Apple users, and I often use this as an example where, if you have an Apple phone and you open an application, you're presented with a modal window that asks you if you'd like application A to track you on third-party applications. We've all been presented with that. The answer is 90% of consumers say no. So, okay, now here's the rub. You have a $500 billion market that requires you to say yes, but when presented with, an option to say yes or no, 90% of people say no. Isn't that indicative of the fact that this market is sort of on a collision course with sort of privacy and compliance? So you've had this privacy legislation manifesting in changes in product, which is increasing consumer awareness, which is now leading to litigation. Those are the four horsemen of data privacy. And they're all working in unison with one another, all accelerating into a much larger wave that, net is not only does the Fortune 500 company not want to buy compliant data, because changes are being made amongst the biggest technology companies in the world, like Apple and Google, the amount of data available in the market is going to shrink dramatically. So what happens when you cut off the Nord Stream pipeline in Europe? There's less oil and less gas, the price goes through the roof. Well, what happens when you cut off the supply of data? A, the price goes up. B, you got to find a new supplier. And then you add in the fact that it needs to be compliant. There's only how many companies that can even satisfy that?
Doesn't sound like a lot.
Well, yeah, I think we're very well positioned for all of these changes that are taking place in the market. And I think what we've proven over a relatively short period of time is you rift through the Fortune 500. This is not Joe's hot dog stand. This is the biggest companies in the world evaluating Reklaim, evaluating the Reklaim data, making a decision to buy the Reklaim data at the expense of somebody else. Every dollar that comes into Reklaim is being taken away from somebody else that does not have the same level of compliance and consent that we have. That is the market share shift that is coming. So we are slowly but surely pulling more and more dollars in data, towards the individual consumer and away from these aggregators. And we think that, ultimately we've demonstrated that we can do it. We've demonstrated that we can do it with the Fortune 500. We've got 15 of the biggest enterprise data companies in the world who've done a similar analysis, a similar evaluation, and put the Reklaim data on our shelf to expose to all of their clients. This is not trivial stuff that you just roll out of bed and
Microsoft, T-Mobile, HP, all these guys. There's a reason why you've got them as clients.
Yeah, and our data, we've also done deals with guys like TransUnion where our data sits inside a TransUnion and is exposed to the entire TransUnion universe. And our data sits inside a LiveRamp and it's exposed to the entire LiveRamp universe. Each of these platforms represents 1,000+ clients. So, it's not dissimilar to if we were selling coffee. If your coffee is distributed in Costco, and then it's in Sam's Club, and then it's in Walmart, inherently, the more shelf space you have, the more sales you're going to get. We've got 15 different types of Costco. So our shelf space we're getting more and more shelf space to get in front of more and more Fortune 500 clients. That in combination with us returning and bringing in the brands directly is what's driving the revenue. But
this almost sounds like you're fastly becoming the Forrest Gump of your industry, because Forrest Gump, for everyone who saw the movie, all the other shrimping boats got trashed in the hurricane. Forrest was left, and that's why the shrimping boats became Forrest Gump Shrimp Company, whatever it became. But not to make light of it, but it sounds like that's what's happening to you, that everybody's running loose and fast and making big money and growing and doing all that. Reklaim is doing it the right way. So you obviously don't have the tens of millions of dollars of revenues yet, but now everything's coming to Reklaim. The whole market is shifting in your direction. So has the company ever been more strong, or has the company ever been more bullish? I'm talking operational, not stock. Operationally, has it been more bullish than it is today?
Well, I think, like this isn't a concept, right? Like, so this is a concept. Like when you build companies, you got to generate the first dollar. That's hard. Generating the first $1 million for a company is really, really challenging. Once you generate $1 million a year, you want to then move to $1 million a quarter, then $1 million a month, then $1 million a week, then $1 million a day. That's how you build companies, right? So like the way you sort of build the structure and the architecture is to sort of satisfy that. As a company, we're pretty small, but we've demonstrated an ability to generate $1 million in revenue from Fortune 500 companies in the biggest Shark Tank in the world, which is the United States. Like most people can't even do that. So, I think from a concept point of view, from a business model point of view, look, these guys, you're not getting Microsoft, Hasbro, all these various brands if you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, I would say that the company has better line of sight on what the size of the opportunity is. I've been saying the same thing for 2 or 3 years, but what I believe 2 or 3 years ago is manifesting. And this is another thing. Again, most of your viewers don't have exposure to me, but I've been building companies in this space for a while. And there's a history that I have here, which is I build my next company inside of the company that I have. And so Reklaim was built in my last company. That company was built inside of my last company. And the company before that was built inside of that. All of them sold, all of them scaled, all of them were commercialized. So the point is that
unbelievable.
We're really good at kind of seeing where things are going. Here's another nugget. What do you think the type of company that I had was prior to this? It was a big data company that was focused on location data and did not have the explicit consent from consumers. And I'm like, this thing is going to go to zero. There's no way that this market is going to continue. We're selling this business to focus on the solution to this business, and we're going to focus on the solution that this business and every business is going to need. So we're not kind of coming at this from the outside. We're developing a solution to a problem from the inside out. We built Reklaim as a business to solve the main problem of our last business and realized, no, not only is this a problem for this business, it's a problem for everybody. Out with the old business, all in on this business. This is way bigger.
Damn, Neil, that's awesome, man. I love that energy. You had the guts to make the call, sell it. I'm sure you probably had a lot of friction and pushback from your board or partners or whoever you had in the previous business, but you convinced them. And clearly now you made the right call because the lawsuits are flying. Facebook and Google are changing the business models as a result of it. So this is happening, right? How does Q3, and I know this is short term, but how are Q3 and Q4 looking, and how's, or 2023, if you want to talk about that, how are they shaping up so far?
Yeah, I mean, the revenue and the growth of the business continues to grow. I think like where we've been really focused, this quarter and last quarter is we've been sort of accelerating this move to a neutral position. And neutral meaning like we saw before kind of the Ukraine-Russia stuff that we felt that things were going to get tougher. And so we'd spent a lot of time building the structure and the infrastructure of the business. And again, if you go back and watch any interviews with me, you'll hear me always say, look, I've been doing this for a while. You need to build scale and distribution before you can drive revenue. And if you don't do them in that order, you will cap your revenue. Scale and distribution is incredibly difficult to do, but once you do it, you have an unlimited ability to drive revenue. We've done scale, we've done distribution, now we're driving revenue. But while we're driving revenue, we've been stripping the cost out of this business where, again, we've been signaling to the market for the last 6 or 7 months, we're done on the CapEx build. It's all streamlining for here. It's no different than any sort of logistical operational challenge where you mainline it. You can continue to drive efficiency through that. Any product, person, process, or brand or client that was not productive, was not going to scale, gone, out. It's got to go. We got to streamline this thing, improve the margin, grow the top line. So where did we land? Well, we had our best quarter ever in Q2, but simultaneous to that, we grew margin 44% in a 90-day period. In a 6-month period, we grew the margin 100%. So, and you've stripped hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost out of this business. So you've got a triple-digit growing top line, basically a cash neutral, like not burning cash in a massive $500 billion market where we think we're the lead dog. So it's a good story. It's all about execution for sure. But I think we've been demonstrating to the market, for quite some time that we continue to add more brands. We continue to add more distribution. We continue to drive more revenue. The profitability of this business is where it is. We're trying to get bigger. I mean,
well, you're up 277% revenue over the same quarter last year. Well, the number I like is you're up 65% sequentially over Q1. Yeah. Sequential growth to me is the one that I look at and amazes me because not a lot of people can achieve that. So you guys aren't just talking the talk, you're walking the walk because you're delivering the numbers, you're delivering the product, you got the tier 1 guys. I mean, Neil, this is a fantastic business. I'm so glad that we're hearing about it for the first time and able to start getting the story out for the first time because your passion is backed by your results. A lot of passionate company owners out there that don't have the results, but one day I'm George Com Widgets are going to be the #1 widget company in the world. And okay, you expect the passion, but you're backing it up, my friend, with numbers, clients, growth, and tier 1 clients. And I love the M&A growth plan. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about in the coming weeks and months for everybody to really, really catch on to the story, my friend.
Well, I appreciate the chat and always happy to talk about the world of data privacy and what we're doing here at Reklaim.
Hey, well, I want to make sure I get signed up and start getting those weekly paychecks because my data's got to be worth big money. But by the way, if anyone watching or listening, what is the website they go to if they actually want to go through the process of finding themselves, verifying themselves, and deciding what they want to do with their data?
Yeah, I mean, you can go online. It's at reclaimyours.com. Reclaim's with a K. So as you can see in the image in the background here, you can also just go to the App Store on Google or Android, type in Reklaim and just download the application. Go in, put in any email address or phone number. You'll have to verify, that you are the owner of that phone number or email address. And when we do, we'll unveil the data that's currently available on you in the market, and then give you the opportunity to share it and be compensated, or to sign up for privacy tools to protect it. Our job is to give you access to your data and then get the hell out of the way and let you do what you want to do with it. That's our job.
Buddy, the numbers tell me you're doing that job pretty well right now. Can't wait to see Q3, can't wait to see Q4, can't wait to see 2023 and how this M&A strategy works out. But thanks for being here today because it's such a big story. And I wanted to make sure everyone had a really good first piece of information, that first foundational knowledge on what Reklaim is. And man, you delivered.
Anytime, my friend, anytime.
To everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Neil Sweeney, he's the CEO of Reklaim, trades in Canada. Now you know why I love the symbol, MYID, MYID. And for our friends in the US, MYIDF. So again, MYIDF. For those new to the story, that's going to be almost all of you. The way you do your due diligence, get to the company's profile page on Agoracom. We've got the story neatly laid out because this isn't just your typical bricks and mortar story. So we've got it nicely laid out for you to understand the business model and all the things you need to know. And then once you're done with that, get over to the Reklaim website, do your deep dive due diligence, and hopefully today you discovered your next amazing small cap disruptive tech company. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom small cap video.